Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle Lee, aka Kilo Loco from kiloloco.com, and today we're going to be going over how to parse JSON using complex, or actually, I should say, complex or nested data, because I mean, it goes by two different names, but yeah. The tools we're going to be using today are just Xcode 8.2.1 and Swift 3. I'm not going to be using any third-party frameworks to parse this data. Just going to be using standard Swift code to parse this data. I set the skill level to intermediate because you should know a few things before this. You should know how to get how to use data models, how to create objects, use their properties, use their methods, things like that, how to initialize them. You should know how to receive data from some type of source. You should know how to get JSON, whether it's from the internet or from a local file. I'll be using a local file for this tutorial, but it doesn't matter where the data comes from. As long as you can get the JSON into your system, it's all the same. And then you should know how to use table views, because I'm going to be going through how to use table views and how to display complex data in a table view. That's mainly what this is about too. I'd like to give a shout out to Cardo Dalise. I hope I said your name right. Sorry if I didn't. I'm really bad at pronouncing names. Cardo is the person that wanted this tutorial. They said that they've been struggling with this problem for quite some time, using heavily nested data or arrays, and passing them to table views. So this is in response to Cardo's comment. So just remember, if you ever have a comment, if you don't know how to do something in iOS or Swift, just let me know. I'll look into it if I don't already know how to do it, and I will present the information back to you. All right, enough of that. Let's get into it. But before I continue, I just want to say I'm going to be using this complex JSON file right here. I made the first one look a little bit prettier than what it would normally look like in a text file. And this is not even that pretty because it's all nasty, complex, super nested data. As you can see, all the stuff is going to be in items, and then, or it's going to be, items, and you're going to have an item. You know what, this might not even work because I modified the data. So I'm just going to only make one instance because I made all this stuff. This is all mock data that I made, all this flat stuff. And the original data is just this one. If you're interested in this actual data, then I'll show you how to get to that real quick. All you have to do is go to Google. You type in, what is it called? JSON data set sample. It's going to be the first one. That's not an ad. Oh, actually, it's the second one. Second one right here, adobe.github.io. Go to JSON dataset sample. And then I'm going to be using the data from example 10 because this is some of the most complex JSON that you're probably going to get. If you ever see this, this means that the API was not properly laid out, by the way. So if you have contact with the person that's in charge of the API, tell them to fix this. This is terrible. All right, so let's get into it. This is the data I'm going to be using. And that's going to be right here in this file. Let me just save it. And let's get into Xcode and open up a new project. All right, this might take a little while. I did not do a test run on this because, I don't think it's really necessary. Complex JSON, whatever. I don't think it's really that necessary to do it for this because it's just parsing, and parsing is something that I have to deal with every day. So I'm gonna just take a swing at it because I don't have very much time. It's been a busy weekend. You know, those holiday weekends tend to be a lot busier than you would normally expect. It's supposed to be a holiday. It's supposed to get a long weekend, but you end up doing a lot more stuff on those long weekends than you would normally do. So whatever. And then let's see if we can get Xcode to keep working. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have two view controllers. Both of them are going to have table view, or well, one of them is going to have the table view in it, right? That's going to be this one right here. And this is really only going to have like one value in it because I took out that other data. When I tried to quickly make that data, I realized that I messed something up and I didn't want to continue doing it messed up because that would ruin the entire tutorial. I'll be sitting here trying to figure out how to fix that. Let's just go with what's already given to us. If you have more complex data, you should be able to figure out how to do what you need to do after I go into this tutorial. If you're using, because the comment that Cardo left was on, it was actually on my third party how to parse JSON data. If you are using third-party framework like Freddy or Swifty JSON, then most of the rules pretty much apply the same, but I mean, you just kind of adapt what I'm going to show you here to whatever framework you're using. You should really understand how to use regular parsing before you use a third party, just in my opinion. All right, so I'm gonna put a couple labels right here. I don't know what's actually gonna go in them yet. Let's just make a couple of them. So that you can clearly see that I did parse the data. Yeah. All right, let's leave it like that. When I get closer to the data, getting everything working, I'll go back and change some of this. Or actually, you know what? Let's just drag this complex JSON text file in real quick. Let's take a look at the data, and maybe I could fill out some of this stuff already. You know what? I didn't do copy if needed, but you're definitely going to need to do that if you're using a real file. But anyway. Okay, so what will I type? I'll pass in the type, the name. I'll also type. I'll also pass in the different batters. Let's see. And toppings. So these would be like options, right? No, I actually should have went through this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll actually parse all the way down to this data, and we won't even use the second one, because after you parse all the way down to this data, you should be able to figure out how to do everything else. So we won't even need the second view controller, like a details view controller. So let me just delete that real quick. Sorry about that. So we're just going to be using this one view controller with a table view, and then what I'll do is I'll parse all the information that I need. I'll parse all the way down to the batter, and then I'll present this array, right? And in this array, I'll turn this into an array of batters, right? So let's do it that way. And I could do the same thing with toppings if I wanted to, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so first thing I need to do is I need to access the data from that file. So we're going to put that in a data service. Swift file. Call this data service. Right. And then we'll do this as a class, data service. And then we'll make sure that we're using a singleton. So we'll close off the initializer. And then we'll do static let shared equals data service, and we're just following normal conventions, the appropriate way to do stuff. So I'm just doing it this way. Do func get data, for lack of a better word, and then in here I'm gonna have to get the path. So guard let path equal bundle dot main dot path for resource, and we're just gonna put in for resource, and that's gonna be the name of our file, which is called complex JSON. Make sure it's spelled properly, all the same upper and lowercase conventions that you have in there. And this is a text file. Nope, text. Else return. And then from here we have to create a URL. So URL is equal to URL with file URL with path, and we're going to pass in our path. And then we have to do catch print error, and then we're gonna do try data. Nope. Try. We have to get this data out of get data. So let data equal try data from, and then we're gonna pass in a URL. How do we initialize data from a URL? It's in here. Contents of URL, that's what it was. URL. And then we need a completion block, so let's do that. Completion. We're gonna take what? Data return void. Seems about right. And then we'll do completion. Pass in our data, and now that will be passed into the callback. Okay, so not going to be doing anything here. We're not going to be worrying about threading or any of that, so we'll just do data service dot shared dot get data, and then data. We'll let JSON equal let's see, we have data. We actually have to do it this way. So do catch, and then if we can't serialize our JSON, then we have to catch and print the error. Sorry about this long setup, guys. It's just what you have to do. Let JSON equal try JSON serialization. Yeah. Dot we need to read. So not writing options, reading options, JSON object, passing in our data, and this is empty. And we're gonna print our JSON. Sound good? Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. All right, let's hope that works. So now we should have our JSON data. I'm gonna go in for our main storyboard. I did not put in a cell, but we'll just use the default for the cell. Okay. I'll just create a default cell, and that should work. All right, let's see this thing pop up. And while we're waiting for it, let's take a look at the data. So what I'm gonna have to do is this is a dictionary. As you can tell, dictionaries are surrounded by curly braces when you get them in JSON. Then we have the key item. So item has a value of an array. Arrays are in bracket quotes or in brackets. square brackets when you, or no wait, yeah, square brackets when looking at JSON. So this would be one item, right? ID, type, name, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the ellipses right here, assuming that there would be multiple items in this array. Now, that's what I was trying to duplicate, but I realized that I kind of messed this up, and I think I put this data down here in the wrong layer, and that would have caused problems. We don't want to deal with that. So we're just going to parse through this one. We're going to go all the way down into batter. We have to get the key batter, first we have to specify that we want the first object, because there's only going to be one, but assume we want the first object. And then we're going to access the key batters, and then batters is also a dictionary. So for this dictionary, we want to get the other key batter, which has a value of an array, and the array is of dictionaries. So this is pretty, I mean, you should really never see this JSON ever in your life. Like I said, that's terrible JSON design, but whatever. We're going to parse all the way through. What is going on here? Did it not play? Unable to attach? Craziness. Blasphemy. Complex JSON. It should open up. Okay, it's opening. It's opening. It's opening. And it broke. Not really sure why it's doing this. Let's try this again. Build succeeded. Should be coming up any second now. There it goes. And let's see. Let's see. It should be printing down here any second. Either that or give me an error. There you go. Man. Need a new computer. Alright, so as you can see, all the data. Luckily, Xcode makes it very beautiful for us. And now we have to parse all the way down into batters, right? So let's get into it. So what I'm gonna do is, for each of these, I'm gonna create an actual data model. And this is probably the best way to do it, because then it keeps all your code very clean and succinct. Like, you'll be able to read it, it'll be very readable. Unfortunately, you're gonna have a lot of weak references, or else it's gonna just start, it's gonna explode pretty much if you delete something. But yeah. All right, so let's get into it. First one that I'm gonna say is, it's gonna be the items response. Let's just call it items response, and that's gonna have an array of items, right? Or no, it's a dictionary. It's a dictionary, right? And it's gonna have this value item, right? So let's create a model for that. And you don't have to create models, but your code will get very nasty, especially if you're dealing with something like this. Whew, it's not something you want to deal with. So let's do item response. And what we're going to do, and you know what, in the data service, I'm just going to put a type alias for JSON called type alias. Going to be JSON. No. JSON, and then this will be of type string and any. Makes our code a little bit cleaner. Alright, so now we're going to make a struct, and this will be item response. This will have a value in it called let's see, we have items. It'll have an item in it, and for whatever reason, this item is just an array. Man, this is the ugliest data I ever did see. Alright, so we'll have an item. So let item, actually, because this is also going to be a value, so we're not even going to get into that yet either. So let's do this. So init, and we'll take in JSON, and this will be of type JSON. So we'll be able to initialize that. Then we're gonna go in and we're gonna have an actual item model. So let's create another model, and we're gonna keep doing this until we get all the way down to the batters. So very repetitive. That's what parsing is. Very repetitive. So item, and this will just be the item model. And we're going to do the same exact thing. So struct, once again, just call this one item. And then we'll also initialize this with also be with JSON, because we're going to be passing all this JSON all the way down. It's going to be passing dictionaries all the way down, right? Or no, this is going to be initialized with an array. Damn. Really bad. It's really bad. So we're going to access the item, right? This is going to be the item response, the actual, and we're going to initialize this with JSON. But the actual items response will have item in it, and the item will need to be initialized with an array. Damn, this is confusing. Let me look at let me look at it again. Hold on. It's an array. Man, that's ugly as hell. Okay. We're going to initialize this with an array of data. Wow. Unbelievable. Let's see. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going, because this is incredible. All right. From here, we're trying to get to the batters, right? So now in this array, we have, mine's a little bit prettier. So in the item, we have an array of dictionaries. You see that? So you have to parse it again to make a dictionary. This was very poorly done. So then maybe we can initialize it with our JSON type alias. I'm sorry that this is so complex. I'm just realizing like how poorly this was done. So since there's never going to be, like, it shows in an item, right? And an item's not going to really have an array of objects, because then it would be items, which is up here. But for whatever reason, it was done this way. So since we're figuring out how to parse data like this, let's go ahead and assume that we're just going to say first and guarantee that we're going to get that. So that eliminates this bracket. And then we finally get into here, which is a dictionary, which makes way more sense. So we're going to actually initialize this with JSON. Okay, that makes more sense, right? Probably not, because I doubt that I'm making sense right now. All right, so now from here with the item object, we'll be able to make it into here, and we'll be able to access these values, right? So one of the values is going to be batters, and we're gonna have to do the whole entire thing. So we're gonna have batters, and then we're gonna have batter. Ugh. All right, I'm gonna just do what's necessary. So let's just keep making our way down. So let's go ahead and make a batters. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go ahead and make a batters. It's kind of hard to follow the correct convention when the data's all jacked up. I didn't look at it that in detail before I started this tutorial. I just saw, oh, this is pretty complex. Let's get into that. And I didn't realize that it was that bad. So that's what happens. All right. So we're going to have batters, and your object should always be singular. But since we're doing it with broken data, we have to do it this way. So batters, and then struct batters, and then this is going to have batter in it. Man, this is so broken. I'm sorry, guys. This might have been a bad example. But whatever. I'm already in it. I'm not going back now. This is the video you get for this weekend. Sorry. Limited time, buddies. Limited time. Make another one called batter. Never ever have your data structured this way, especially on the iOS side, having things named so closely. That's a recipe for confusion. And it also with JSON. And then so now we've finally made it down into this, and then this is actually going to be an array. So we'll have we'll call this batter flavors, and it will be we'll have batter, let's see. Yeah. We'll have to have another object called batter flavors, and I'm just making this up because we see that it has a type, or batter types. We'll call this batter types, right? So we'll do regular, chocolate, blueberry, and devil's food. You could probably do this in an enum, but this data's already hurting my brain, and I don't want to get into that. So let's just keep going. Batter type. All right, so once again, struct batter type init, and this is going to be with an array. Or wait, this is probably gonna have to take any. I'm so confused right now. Let's say, and it was something, and this is gonna be any. All right, so what do we know about our batter types? It's going to have ID, and it's going to have a type. So we have let ID, and let's assume that this is probably going to be a string. Yeah, it's a string. You see that? So ID and a type, both of string. String. This will probably also have to be JSON. Who knows? We'll see. Let type also be a type string, and then so now what we're going to do is we're going to parse backwards. I think that probably makes the most sense right now when you're using structures in this really twisted, messed up way. So we have a dictionary down here, right? And what we'll do is we'll parse this. So we have ID and type. So let's get back into it. And remember that JSON, our JSON type alias is just a string in any object, so it does allow subscripting. So guard let ID equal JSON, and this was called ID as string, And then we want to do the same thing. Let type equal JSON, and this is going to be type as string, else return. And what we'll do is we'll do self.id is equal to id, self.type equal to type, right? So that should work. And then we're probably gonna have to make all these failable. So return nil. All right. So now we're able to parse our batter types, right? So this will be one batter type. This will be another batter type. That will be another batter type. That will be another batter type. We're going to keep all of our batter types in our batter object, our batter struct. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll do that as an array of batter types. So now we could do batter. Let's do let batter types equal an array of batter type, right? And this will not be equals, it's actually going to be of type batter, array batter type. So now when we get our JSON, we have to remember that our batter is not going to be able to access that directly. So we're going to have to actually go through, parse it, pass in the data of this JSON, get our batter types, and then get that from the array to create that. So at this point we're given, we'll have our, let's see, from batters I'm going to be passing in batter. So I have to parse this. Let's do it. So guard let batter equal JSON and batter as an array of JSON, else return. Right? And then we're going to have to pass in our batter. It's kind of hard to explain this because I have to kind of work through it, and yeah, it's interesting. It's a very interesting situation because it's a lot of data to parse through without testing. So what we're going to do, or maybe I should start from the top down. Would that be easier? Maybe easier, but then we wouldn't be able to initialize our objects. Damn, this is crazy. All right, so let's keep going. I'm gonna assume at this point I'm gonna have the batter, and it's gonna be an array of value, and then what we'll do is we'll initialize batters and then append them to our batters. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so let batter types equal batter, because remember this is an array of JSON dot map, and then we're gonna map it right? So each object is a JSON object, and we're going to initialize each batter type with our JSON object. JSON, and that will be $0. Close it, and then we actually will have to do, I think, flat map if it'll work. So now what we'll have, yeah, that's not gonna work. It doesn't ever work with Swift types. That's a Swift bug. But anyway, we'll just say that it'll have to work, right? Return failable, return nil. And this is going to be an array of batter types. So now we can set our batter types to that. So self.batter types is equal to batter types. All right. So now we're parsing through. You know what? I can't guarantee this, so it might be a little bit easier if I start parsing from the top down so that you can actually go through it. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be a little bit harder if you don't understand how to parse complex data, and I'm doing it from the bottom up. So we'll meet halfway. So let's get this response. We'll say response. We know that it's a dictionary, right? So guard let item equal, or we'll do items equal JSON as JSON, else return nil. So I'm sorry if you've been watching all this time and then that wasn't making any sense. I just realized, like, from a starter's perspective, that's probably not the best way to do it. Apologies. So items. So let's go over what's going on right here, because this is a good starting point, a restarting point, right? So we're going to get this JSON back. Now, this should be a value. Well, we know that this is a dictionary, right? So we have items, and then it has a value. So key value, and this value is, it doesn't matter. It's any value, right? But this is a dictionary. For sure, we know that. It's not an array, and we can tell that also because it has the curly brackets. It doesn't have the square brackets, which are in here. You can see that as parentheses that imply that it's an array, but yeah. So we'll get this items, and then instead of showing items, now it'll just show this dictionary item, and then we'll go from there. Right? So let's print out what we have in our items, right? Let's just print that out. But first we have to actually use this object. So now we have to initialize that item response object with our JSON. So let item response equal item response, and then we're going to initialize it with JSON, and we have a JSON. We already got our JSON right there. So if this works, oh yeah, that's right, as JSON, because right now it's just returning like any, actually, and we have to do some guard statements, else return. So let's start again. Sorry again. Um, so what's gonna happen is we're gonna get our JSON back, all this stuff. Now, as long as this JSON conforms to our JSON type alias, which means that it's just this, it's of type string and any, then I should be able to initialize this object, which is item response, and I'll be able to use that object, right? And item response will actually, since I'm initializing it, and if it works, once again, the value for the items right here is of type string, which is it is, and any, then we should be able to print our items and we won't see this item keyword right there. So let's try that out. Let's make sure that it works. And it'll also, well, no, it wouldn't say that right there, but we'll see. Complex nested garbage data for the loss. All right, so as you can see, it did give us the item, and it knows that the value is of type array. So now we have to go one level deeper, and we have to initialize our item object. So what we'll do is and remember that since this is an array and it stops right there and there's no other values, we have to make sure that we parse that array part out when we make our item. So our item's singular. So var item, or actually let item be of type item, right? It's not going to be an array. If there was actually normal data in here that's stated that, you know, there's multiple items in this array, then we would probably do an array of item. You know what? Let's just do it that way. I don't want to try to confuse you guys any more than I'm already confusing you guys. I'm sorry. All right, so now we're printing out items, right? It's still just this JSON data, and we know that it's an array. But now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to map this into an item object, right? So all we have to do is we have to initialize this and pass in JSON. So remember, this items right here is also JSON. So what we'll do is we'll do let item, we'll call this item array, right? Let item array equal items dot and actually this is going to be items or no, this is going to be, yeah, this is going to be items, and then we want to get the value, which is item, which is going to give us the array item. So now we're grabbing this value of type array as, and what is this an array of? So we see one array, and that array is of dictionaries. So it would be an array of dictionaries or of JSON. So we'll just say this, print else return nil. And we'll print item array. Or we'll do this one as item array, and then this one will just be items. There we go. So what's going on here? I'm gonna just assume that this works, and I'm gonna try to run it again. Man. Items is a dictionary, and the value should be consecutive statement. What is this? Xcode doesn't know what it's talking about. Yeah, because this is an array of dictionaries, right? Item as an array of dictionary. Yeah. Yeah. I'm right. I think I'm right. As an array of dictionary, else return nil. Yeah. Oh, guard. Hello. So now we're gonna print. So we just have to do one step at a time. This won't let me compile because I didn't initialize it properly, but let's just keep moving forward. I'm gonna comment that out. We'll initialize it in a bit. We just want to make sure that item array is just gonna give us, now it should just give us batters, ID, name, PPU, and topping and type. So now all this stuff should have been parsed out, and we should just get one dictionary. It'll think that it's still an array, but since it's only one value inside that array, that's how we're gonna do it. So let's see. Xcode does not like doing this. Okay, so now we have the item right here, right? Oh no, wait, that's the wrong one. Oh, I should have. Crap. So let's see. Okay, so it starts right here. It printed twice because I didn't comment this one out, but it really starts right here. And as you can see, we have a dictionary. And it has all this stuff in here. Right? And don't worry about this. This is just it trying to make it look pretty for you. It doesn't really indent it because it's so damn nested. It can't indent it properly. Anyway, so now we have items, right? So now what we can do is we can initialize the item properly. So we'll do let items. This is too many. Let's just do let item. Let parse items, I guess. Parse item equal, or item objects. We'll just do that. Item objects equal or actually, let's see. I'm so confused. I'm so confused. Okay, so we have an items array. Now we need to initialize the object with JSON. So let item objects equal item array dot map. Oh man, Cardo, I'm so sorry. This is so intense. All right, so item, and then we'll initialize this with JSON and then this will be there we go. And then now we could have our item object. Items, or self.items. Items is equal to items. Item objects. There we go. I know this is extremely confusing, but this data is extremely confusing. This is kind of the process that you have to work through. All right, so now we get into our item. And now the item will have even less data. So we're not printing anything down here. And what we'll do is we'll print out the JSON right here so that we're seeing, actually that'll print it. Yeah, it'll only print it once. Yeah, so we'll do print right here. It'll print our JSON. And it should be even less. It should just be this object without this right here. So we have to keep going down. We have to keep pulling out each of the values, taking what we need, and then keep breaking it down. So now I can actually access batters, this one right here, right? And this is a dictionary. So now let batters this is gonna be so ugly when we pull out the actual item. Watch. So let batters equal or be of type, or no, wait, we have batters. We have a batters object. And then what we're gonna do is, since we have access to this JSON, now we can use the batters keyword and parse that out. So let batters equal JSON batters, and then this is as JSON, because once again it's just giving us even more string any dictionaries, pretty much return nil. Have to make it failable just to make sure that it works properly. And then self.batters is equal to batters, right? So now that we made this object, we can go into the batters object as JSON. Oh no, that's just JSON. We have to actually initialize it. So batters, I should call this actually batters JSON. Batters initialize with JSON, we'll do batters JSON. So now what's happening is we're grabbing this batters value and we're sticking this into it. Yeah? Hope that makes sense. My God. Once again, guard statement is missing. And then batters JSON as JSON. You know what? I might not be initializing it properly. Yeah, should work. Print JSON. Yeah. So now instead of printing the JSON from here, I'm just going to take it out. And now I'm going to print it from the batters, and then we're only going to see what's in this dictionary right here. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer and closer. Oh, you know what? Yeah. And then it's going to have a batter object Crazy stuff. What is this? Oh, because it's failable, we have to put in the exclamation point, I think. There we go. Man, see how complex this is? That's why I called it complex data. Maybe I should have turned it up to advanced. Alright, so now we have a batter's key and it has an array. Alright. And we're still not even to the damn table views yet, guys. I'm sorry. Sorry, Cardo. This is what you gotta do. If you wanted to do it right. I mean, you could have just straight parsed all the way down into one with one object and it'd probably look a lot easier, or probably be a lot easier to understand, but this is the right way to do it. So now we have the batter's object, and then we want, let me see what our batter is. Yeah, so we're gonna just do let batter type batter, and once again we just grab this key from the JSON and then we just specify that it's an array. Yeah, it's an array of batter actually. Yeah, because it's an array, so we're going to be returning an array of batter, and each batter is going to have a type, even though that it says it's an array, but it only has one value. Sorry. Okay, so now what we're going to do is let batter equal JSON, and then we're going to grab the key, which is batter right here. It's as an array of JSON, else return and I keep forgetting to put the guard. I'm not really sure what's wrong with me right now. Alright, so now we have a batter and it's an array of JSON, even though we only have one value in there. This is the proper way to set it up, right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pass in, we're gonna make a batter object. We have to map this batter and turn it into an array of batters. So let batters equal batter dot map, and then we have to initialize our batter object, batter with JSON, right? And then, oh, I should have just called this batter JSON right there, so it makes more sense. I'm sorry. Could have called it whatever you want, but I think that will help lower some of the confusion. Not likely. Batter JSON. Nope. What am I doing? I'm sorry, guys. We're looping through the batter JSON because it's an array of JSON, and then for each JSON object, we're creating a batter object. There we go. Wow. Self.batters is equal to batters, right? So now, finally, when we get in there, return nil. Now, when we finally get into batter, we'll just have another array of JSON, let me see. Oh no, hold on. Let me see, hold on. Let's delete this real quick. I'm sorry. Print JSON. Gonna comment this out. We gotta see exactly what we're getting back so I could properly parse this. I should have went from the top down. Try to do it from the bottom up. Usually makes things a lot cleaner when you're initializing, but when it gets this confusing, it's not easy. Excuse me. There we go. It's failable. You have to do you have to force and wrap it. Right. So now what we'll do is it'll parse all the way down and it'll just give us the minimum. So now we have the batter types, right? So when we went down into our, go into our batters and then we go into our batter, this will be our batter type. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab you know what? I think I parsed a little bit too far. I could probably make it with this because it's just a dictionary. Yeah, because it's making batter. Okay, so I parsed too far. So what we'll do is we'll do ID, let ID, that's of type string, and let and we're gonna do let type also be of type string, and then we'll do JSON, or we'll do let guard let ID equal JSON, grab the ID object as string, else return, and then we actually have to do that for the type as well, so we'll do let type equal JSON. We'll grab the type value as string, and we have to put a comma right here, and then from there, if those work, then we can set our value. So self.id is equal to id self.type is equal to type. So now we have to do return nil because it's failable. So now that we're not printing anything, what we can do is we could reach all the way into us. We could reach all the way down from our item response and we could grab our objects, right? Because yeah. So what? Watch. This is crazy. Watch this. So let batters equal item response dot items, and then we have to specify first, right? Because it's, and then we go dot batters dot batters dot batters, yeah. let batters, and then we do print batters. Whew! Look at how far that is. Woo! Don't want to be working with that. So now it should give us an array of batters, and it will just show our batter object because we're just printing it out right here. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't even see any JSON actually anymore. It should just be an array of objects. See, and it's optional because we did failable. So that's kind of how you. I'm so sorry that was so damn confusing. First of all, let me remove this one because we didn't use this one. I started from the bottom, but now we're here. Should have started from the top down. It makes it a lot easier for you to parse. Okay, so let's go through what's going on. So we take in our JSON, right? We grab the items key. We specify that it is JSON, which is a string and an any for the value. We grab the item value from that. We specify that's also an array of JSON objects. From that, we loop through the item array, right? Create our item object out of each of them, and we set it to items, which we can see right here. Now, for the item object, remember, we're cutting out some of this JSON, and we're breaking it down so it's less and less JSON that's being passed down. So whenever we see this JSON, it's less and less because it's like so our data is nested. Now you'd probably want to make all these like weak references so that you don't delete one and it blows up your system, because then I believe you'll have what is it, a retain cycle? No, it should be good. Actually, there should be no retain cycle. Anyway, we should have less and less JSON for each of these structures. So now in the item object, all I have to do is grab the JSON and then specify that I want the batters from the JSON, and say that the value is of type JSON, which once again, a dictionary that has a string key and any value. And then we create our JSON from that. We have the batters JSON, and we are able to initialize our batters object. And from here, the JSON that we're getting, we can access the batter key. And the batter key has a value of array of JSON. So now we have to parse through that. We have to loop through it. I'm using a map to loop through it. Initialize the batter using each JSON object in batter JSON, which is the $0 right here. That's able to create an array of batters, which I can then set right here. And in the batter object, I finally have access to just the ID and the type. And then from there, I can set the properties that I would like. And then when I print out, when we go all the way down and we say, okay, I want access to this, which is what we ended up printing, that's what we get. We get an array of these of our batter structures. So you can see ID and the type, ID and the type, ID and the type. So now we'll just do guard let. My God. Guard let else return. Now I don't know if that should be crashing. I don't think it should. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll have a variable, batters, right? Or, yeah, whatever, batters. I'm tired, guys. I'm sorry. This is going to be an array of batter. right? And actually, since we're going to be using it in a table view, I'm going to just initialize it as an empty array of batters. Okay. That's like the least of your worries. Anyway, now I'm going to make an extension of my view controller class, view controller, and we want UI table view data source, right? So now we have to do the normal table view data source stuff. So number of sections, I'm gonna return 1. Number of rows, return batters dot count. Let's see. Cell for row, and then we're going to do let cell equal UI table view cell. I want it to have a different style, which is details, or subtitle, I mean. No reuse identifier. And we'll do cell dot title. What is it called? Text label dot text is equal to batters, and then index row, index path dot row. So now we're going to access our batter, and then we can specify we want to put the type in right there, and then cell dot details text label dot text will be equal to batters index path dot row, and we're gonna just put in the ID right there, whatever, and then we're gonna return that cell. Oh yeah, because the text label is optional, don't have a guarantee that it'll be there. Okay. Man, Cardo, you be asking for the hardest things to cover, man. That's not that hard. It's just really tedious, time consuming, and a little bit confusing when you're dealing with extremely broken data. Okay, we have the table view there. The reason why it didn't work is because I didn't set the batters. I didn't set it right here. So self.batters is equal to batters. And I shouldn't even have to reload the table view because it's on the main thread. All this is happening on the main thread. There's no threading, no multi-threading or anything like that, so I shouldn't have to do that. Damn, Xcode, you tripping. Let's see. Okay, that didn't work. Now let's do refresh. Don't even have access to the table view. Oh, it didn't work because I didn't even connect the data source. That's why it didn't work. Man. That's what it was. So all I have to do is connect the data source. Man, if you're watching this, whew, good luck on understanding what just happened. This was like free coding. This was like just freestyle code session. There we are. See that? Bam. Parsed all the way down. Got it. So, in summary, Whew, in conclusion, what you have to do is you have to go step by step, and you have to grab something. Let's say this items, right? We have to grab it. And get the value. Now we're going to say that the value is any, so that we can continue parsing. We'll say the value is of type string and any. A dictionary that has a key, which is a string, which we know it is, item, and the value will be any because it's an array. So that's how you're going to keep parsing. Now, you could do something a little bit more risky. You could say that it's something like this, which you're not supposed to do, but you can say it's a string, or it's a dictionary with the value of type string, and then this is also 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 of type string, and this is of type array of dictionaries, which are also of type string, and then you could do something like that, and that technically would work. Problem is that one, looks ugly as hell, right? Two, if the person that made this API, and if the idiot that made an API like this is still working, then you can get any type of value back. You could get, which you see, this is a number right here. See how it doesn't have the quotes around it? This would be like a double. We'd have to parse this as a double. So if you did this and you like force unwrapped it, it would crash your program. Or if you did optionally unwrap, you would always return nil, because this one's gonna throw you off. The fact that this is a number is gonna throw you off, so it wouldn't be able to move any farther. So that's why you have to do string of type key is of type string, value is of type any, and then you have to go down, and then you have to check that, and you have to do your guard statement or your if let statement or whatever, and you have to keep moving down one at a time until you finally get the value that you want. So I hope that made sense. I'm so sorry that I didn't go through this a first time. I really should have. I apologize for that. I won't do it again. I hope that you did get some or any value out of this. I know it was extremely confusing, but that's what happens when you're working with data that's not like clean. You got to make sure that your APIs are clean. Talk to your backend guy. Make sure that they're not nesting too deep. That is just a general rule of thumb. Like, you should not be nesting too deep. You should maybe go 2-3 layers down max. But when you start going in like 4 or 5 layers, you see how, look at 1. So look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 layers in. Are you serious? Look at, I had to create 1, 2, 3, 4. I had to create 4 whole structures just to get some data out. That's too deep, man. It's way too deep. You shouldn't be nesting like that. It should be like maybe 2, 3 tops. Definitely not 4. And that's not even an object. Maybe like 3 objects. You maybe use 3 objects, but if you're gonna be using 3 objects, it should be straight to the point, easy to access. Not like what we had to go through, where there's a dictionary of an array and only has one value, and it doesn't make sense to have it like that, like batters and then batter, and then inside batter it has an array of batters. Like, what the hell? What is that? No, you don't do that. It doesn't make sense. You'd put batters up here. It'd be right here. That's where it makes the most sense. Like toppings, they did it right. See, toppings is an array. That makes sense. You don't have items, or well, maybe you have item. That makes sense. But then you don't have an array of item. That doesn't make any sense. You would remove this, and then you'd have this right here. Look, you'd have what's in here, and you just put it over here, and it wouldn't be an array, it'd just be a dictionary. So if you see data like this, tell your backend person that they're fired. I don't care if you're the new person on the team, you fire them, and then you learn how to make an API, because building anything is way better than dealing with data like this. All right, that's enough of me ranting. That's enough of me freestyle coding. Sorry again for this video. But if you did like it, then thumbs up. If you didn't like it, then thumbs down. I expect a lot of thumbs downs on this one. And then if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me in the comments, or you can tweet me on Twitter. You can also join my Slack team, and you can reach out to me on Slack, where we could do some live interaction when I have the downtime. So yeah, I'm trying to put together a little community where you guys can help each other code and stuff like that. Maybe like a instant Stack Overflow type of thing, hopefully. But I digress. This code will once again be up on GitHub. And yeah, that's me, Kyle Lee, aka Kilo Loco from kiloloco.com. And as always, code passionately. If you can. With bad data, code passionately.